Tuesday, September 5th, Larry Taylor will receive the Medal of Honor at a ceremony in Washington, D.C. On a previous episode of this podcast, we told the story of the combat action that happened on June 18th, 1968 in the Vietnam War, where Larry Taylor saved the lives of 4 soldiers. 55 years after that combat action, Taylor will be awarded the highest honor a member of the military can receive for valor in combat. We also told the story of the long fight to have Taylor's Silver Star upgraded to the Medal of Honor. If you haven't listened to that episode, I encourage you to do that. And now the story of that combat action is incredible, but there are also many other outstanding stories from Larry Taylor's 81 years on this planet.
What possessed you? I don't know, you just do it. And I guess if I'd have stopped and thought about it, no, I'd have done it anyway, to hell with it.
But that's the thing, I think, and you've told me some version of this, and I've heard other versions of this. This wasn't just the thing you did that one night. Doing your job in Vietnam meant
hanging your ass out.
Over and over and over every day.
On a nightly basis.
This is Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This is the podcast that tells the stories of the people who call the Tennessee Valley home. We discuss the problems we all face and talk to the people working on solutions. I'm Josh Rowe. I'll be your host for this journey. Just in case you land on this episode at some point in the future. The 2 interviews of Vietnam veteran Larry Taylor that you will hear in this episode were recorded on July 10th, 2023, 2 days after Taylor got the call from President Biden where he learned he would receive the Medal of Honor. And on August 28th, 2023, 8 days before the ceremony where Taylor would be honored at the White House. We called this episode Larry Taylor Tells Incredible Stories because he does. Here's an example. A veteran in Chattanooga and a friend Larry and I have in common told me about one story. That when you were in college, that you played in a band in Knoxville and that you played some shows with Dolly Parton.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. What was that like?
Yeah, I had a 5-piece band called the Bonnevilles. We wore red blazers. Is that tacky? But they were red blazers and a bow tie or a string tie or an ascot, or I don't remember. And I was occasionally, if you went to WBIR TV, which was channel 10,
yeah.
On Sunday, you set the band up and play a couple of things, and they would play them live. And Dolly was, sometimes she'd sing on there. She came up one time and said, can I sing a song with you? And I said, well, hell yeah, what do you want to sing? And Wildwood Flower or some off the wall something. And anyway, we got through it. And we would play for band or play for dances for fraternity and sorority balls and stuff like that. And sometimes she'd show up at those things and she'd just come up and hug you. And she's country as a cow turd, but she's the friendliest person you've ever seen. Genuine, absolutely genuine. And even after all that time, I saw her again, and she remembered me, and we hugged and sat down and talked. Well, what have you been doing the last 10 years? You know, that type of thing. But she is genuine, and if she tells you it's raining, by God, get your umbrella because it's raining. I've never known her to puff or, if that's the word. Good kid. And
was that the Cas Walker show that you were on Channel 10?
Yeah, Cas Walker.
Yeah.
On Sundays.
After that, their lives took different paths. In 1967 and 1968, she was on her way to stardom on the Porter Wagner Show in Nashville. And Larry Taylor was on his way to Vietnam. The combat action that earned Larry Taylor the Medal of Honor happened in June of '68.
She had a voice that was it was crystal clear. And when I went back to Germany for a couple of years and then came back, I moved in the old family house out in St. Elmo. And I had the TV on for background noise, and I was painting or doing something, and I heard this voice, and I said, I've heard that voice before. And sure enough, I looked at the TV, and it was Dolly Parton. So I called her, and we met, and she hadn't changed. And I read her book. She grew up poor. I mean, dirt poor. And she overcame all of it. And she's the nicest and most sincere person you'd ever want to meet.
Just one of the many fascinating stories from Larry Taylor. We spent a lot of our time together talking about the Vietnam War and the whirlwind of the last couple of months. What's that been like for you as, all these phone calls happen and all the things, are planned and all these things?
Yeah, it's happening faster than you can process it. And it's scary, sort of. Like I'm afraid they're going to ask me to do something that I don't know, or they're going to ask me to do this, and I don't know whether I can do that or not.
In case you're not familiar with the story, June 18th, 1968, Mr. Taylor had been flying Cobra helicopters in the Vietnam War for about 6 weeks. His job, they called him in for aerial fire support when soldiers on the ground were in trouble. But one night, near what was then Saigon, he answered the call. But after a long firefight, he ran out of ammunition. So to save 4 soldiers on the ground, he landed his Cobra helicopter in the middle of a firefight. Those soldiers jumped on the empty rocket pods and the struts and skids, and Taylor and his co-pilot lifted those soldiers out of that fight to safety. It was a maneuver that had not been done prior to that. And that is the combat action that would eventually earn Taylor the Medal of Honor. 55 years later, he will be awarded that Medal of Honor on September 5th, 2023.
But that was the first question the general asked me when we got in at daylight the next morning. He said, "What in the hell possessed you to do that?" I said, "Sir, it needed doing. Can't beat that. All right, go ahead." And that's the only thing that was ever said.
I heard, and you can verify this if you want to or not, that on the night of the mission, the people back at the base camp were telling you not to do it. They said, don't go do this.
Yeah.
I also heard you turned the radio off so you couldn't hear them anymore. Did that happen?
I changed channels and cut their channel off and went directly to the LERPs. And I told them, okay, is anybody hurt? Anybody wounded? Is everybody ambulatory? Because we're going to move quickly. And the Viet Cong kept surrounding them. And so I had to pull them back this way and exit that way because they were just enveloped. And they had some flares, aerial flares that they were dropping, and that's the only light we had. They had the lights of Saigon in the background, but it was just blurry, and it was raining. So hell, we just did it. And the general says, "Well, are you happy with it?" And I said, "Yes, sir, it went just like I planned it." And we were winging the whole thing.
This interview in late August was a bit different than when I spoke to Larry just after he got the call from the president. And you have to consider the situation here. Larry's been fighting cancer for several years, and his friends have been working to help make this happen for years. They were told no several times. They submitted and resubmitted the packet to the Army time after time. And after 55 years, Taylor finally got that call that he would receive the Medal of Honor. It was a whirlwind couple of days after getting that news. When I was in his living room, his phone was ringing nonstop. His friends told me he was running just purely on adrenaline. And it was clear to me that he'd been thinking about Vietnam a lot. And during that conversation, he was emotional at times.
When the horn went off, you had 2 minutes to get that thing in the air. And I've flown many a mission in my underdrawers and flip-flops. But by God, we always made it off on time. And I prayed the whole time I wouldn't get shot down, because the enemy would think I was crazy running around in a pair of jockey shorts and flip-flops. But you just do whatever's necessary to get the job done. I was in my mid-20s at the time, and pure in heart and had the strength of 10, and a bullet can't harm me. And then sometimes you'd come home and you'd sit down and think over the mission, and you'd have to get up, throw up. You'd think, God, I could have been killed. Well, I had a co-pilot and I had a wingman. They were all in the same thing. There were just a lot of guys that didn't make it. And I've met their families. They show up at reunions. They don't know anybody there. But they show up and they say, I'm looking for Captain Taylor. And they'd come up and just hug you. Said, you don't know me, but you saved my daddy's life. And then I'd cry and they'd cry. And a widow would cry. And we'd all stand there crying. And I'd never seen any of them before. But yeah, I still wake up during the night, all these years later, in a sweat. And I think, man, do you know how lucky you are?
There is so much planned over the next few weeks. The ceremony to honor Larry Taylor at the White House is Tuesday, September 5th. There will also be a parade in downtown Chattanooga on Monday, September 11th. Also, Wednesday, September 13th is the annual luncheon to support the Charles H. Coolidge National Medal of Honor Heritage Center in downtown Chattanooga. Taylor will be honored there as well. We'll be at all of these events. Look for our reports on News Channel 9 and Fox Chattanooga, as well as our social media accounts. Chattanooga, Tennessee hasn't seen anything like this in a generation. The last person from Southeast Tennessee to receive the Medal of Honor was Ray Duke. He received the honor posthumously in 1954. The last time someone from Hamilton County, Tennessee received the Medal of Honor was Charles Coolidge. He was awarded the Medal of Honor in Germany, June 18th, 1945. June 18th, the same date, 23 years before the combat action where Larry Taylor earned his Medal of Honor. Oh, and one more thing. There could soon be more to come concerning the Medal of Honor and Chattanooga. 2 of Andrew's raiders from the Great Locomotive Chase during the Civil War are buried at Chattanooga National Cemetery. They were the only military members from Andrew's raiders who never received the Medal of Honor: George P. Wilson and Philip G. Shadrach. Their citations are in the military office in the White House, waiting for the president's signature right now. Stay tuned for more on that on this podcast. You are listening to Tomorrowtown, Tennessee. This podcast is a production of News Channel 9, Fox Chattanooga, and Sinclair Broadcast Group Chattanooga. We hope you join us again real soon.